كل من عليها فان كل من عليها فان كل من عليها فان دعوة ياسين بيتمكو.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Viewers, we welcome you back to Masrur Studio. Tonight we have a distinguished guest amongst us. He is in the person of Maulvi Hafiz Fazakir. He is currently serving as the National Rishtanata Secretary for Majlis Qudam al-Ahmadiyya. Maulvi Sahab, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Our topic for discussion tonight is Halal and Haram.
Yes, please.
We want to move into our first question fast forward. We want you to enlighten us. When we say Halal and Haram, who is that sole authority who declares something to be Halal and Haram?
Jazakumullah for the opportunity, and it is my prayer that Allah the Almighty makes this program a source of guidance for the listeners. I would want to make a correction. I'm not the National Secretary for Rishtanata. As Qudam, there is a committee under the Rishtanata, the Muawin Sadr Rishtanata, and I am secretary to that committee.
MashaAllah.
Yes, so I think that would be a nice explanation for the viewers watching, so they don't get confused. Yes, the Holy Qur'an is the first source of Islamic guidance, and it is the word for word revelation of Allah the Almighty. And therefore, the only person who declares something to be haram and halal is Allah the Almighty. The Prophet ﷺ has said that in the very beginning verses of Surah Al-Baqarah, we know Allah the Almighty introduces himself to the reader of the Holy Quran that Alif Lam Mim, Ana Allahu A'lam, that I am Allah, the most knowing. So whatever words that would follow proceeds from that being who is an inexhaustive source of knowledge and wisdom. And so Allah is, the sole person to declare something to be haram and halal. And for that reason, he's the one we turn to for everything. Then the Prophet ﷺ says that the second source of Islamic guidance is the Sunnah. And here we differ a bit from our general Muslim brethren, because there's a clear distinction between the Sunnah, what the Sunnah is, and what the Hadith is. The Sunnah is a practical example. The Islam the Prophet ﷺ taught his companions alongside the revelation of the Holy Quran, which existed amongst the Muslims 150 years till the Ahadith were compiled. And so the Ahadith then comes third to, the Quran. After the Quran, then follows the Qiyas, the Ijma'i Sahaba, and then the Qiyas, the juristic reasoning made by the scholars of the time. Now, so that means that the law comes to the Prophet, who is the first interpreter of it. That's what Allah Almighty says in Surah Al-Nisa, chapter 4, verse 60, that Allah Almighty says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul wa ulil amri minkum. Right? You obey Allah the Almighty, the Prophet, and those who have been given authority amongst you. And so Allah the Almighty is a sole person to say that. And Allah the Almighty also says once again in Surah Al-Nahl, verse 116, that وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَا تَصِفُ أَلْسِنَتُكُمُ الْكَذِبَ هَذَا حَلَالٌ وَهَذَا حَرَامٌ لِتَفْتَرُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ. That do not say things with your tongue, lies with your tongue, that this is halal and this is haram, in an attempt to put a lie on Allah the Almighty. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَفْتَرُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ لَا يُفْلِحُونَ. That those who form lies against Allah the Almighty do not succeed. And so anybody, any scholar, anywhere, cannot stand up and give an edict of faith or a fatwa about any matter, saying that this is haram or this is halal, without substantiating it from the Holy Quran or the Hadith. And we Ahmadi Muslims are indeed blessed to have accepted Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salatu wasalam, the promised Messiah Imam Mahdi, whom the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam has described as the Hakam and Adil, the just judge who would judge amongst the Muslims, and we have accepted him. And so when it comes to issues like this, our mind is clear and we are enjoying the blessings of Khilafat, who is the representative, the successor of the Prophet ﷺ. And so we are, a very safe boat.
MashaAllah. Jazakallah for that enlightenment. So if I'm to understand your input, meaning that we get all this enlightenment from the books of Allah Almighty and Sunnah, Hadith, and the companions.
Yes.
Let's move into the Holy Quran, which is the first or the main source of guidance for Muslims.
Yes.
Has Allah Almighty mentioned any kind of haram food which should not be consumed?
Yes. In a lot of places of the Holy Quran, Allah Almighty has explicitly stated what is forbidden for Muslims and what is allowed for them to eat. And it is everywhere, as I said, in the Holy Quran, you'd find it in a few places. But Surah Al-Ma'idah has it in quite detail, and so that is where we would quote from.
Inshallah.
Chapter 5, verse 5 of the Holy Quran, verse 4 of the Holy Quran, Allah says, حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةُ وَالدَّمُ وَلَحْمُ الْخِنْزِيرِ وَمَا أُحِلَّ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ بِهِ. That forbidden for you are the dead animal, the blood of those animals, or the blood of any animal at all, then the flesh of swine, pork, is forbidden, and those animals upon which the name of any other being apart from Allah has been pronounced and slaughtered. Right, so that is the first thing. So the first thing is a dead animal. Now, a dead animal is definitely, not favorable. The blood has been coagulated, diseases starts to form, and it is definitely not good for the health of any human being. The next one is the blood. It contains toxins of an animal. You don't know what it is, and you are taking it. Allah the Almighty has forbidden it for believers. The next thing is walahmul khinzir. And this is the famous animal that is known that Muslims do not eat.
Yes.
And everybody is very, very particular about it.
Yeah.
Yes. And about it shortly, we've spoken about health benefits when it comes to the dead animal. The Prophet ﷺ makes a very beautiful point here that in the word khinzir itself, we understand why this animal has been forbidden, because it is a formation of two words, ara and khanz. Khanz means something that is foul and nasty. Ara means I see. So the name khinzir basically means I find it to be nasty and foul. And so by its name, we know what it is. And one thing that should be understood that is that we know the health benefits, right, of staying away from these things. But the first important thing that every believer must keep in mind is that we do not eat these things, first of all, because Allah the Almighty has prohibited us from it. That is the first thing. Obedience, a spiritual test of obedience to Allah the Almighty. But because Allah the Almighty doesn't give a command that is devoid of wisdom, therefore we know that in fact what Allah the Almighty has forbidden for us, it's harmful for us and we should stay away from it. And so in this verse, Allah the Almighty continues to say that any other animal that the name of Allah has been pronounced upon, right, that is the name of any other being or any other deity apart from Allah has been pronounced upon, is also forbidden. Then Allah the Almighty goes on to explain that an animal that is strangled and killed is not allowed for you to eat. An animal that falls down and dies is not allowed for you to eat. An animal that is beaten with a stick till it dies is not allowed for you to eat. An animal that is gored to death is not allowed for you to eat. Then Allah says, وَمَا ضُبِحَ عَلَى النُّصُبِ وَأَن تَسْتَقْسِمُوا بِالْأَزْلَامِ. That those animals that are slaughtered on altars dedicated to idols, to other deities, are not allowed for you to eat. This is disobedience for you, and you shouldn't follow them. So these are the things that are forbidden for us, and Allah the Almighty has stated clearly, and the details are a lot. We cannot go into all of them within this program. But with regards to what's allowed for Muslims to eat, in the next verse of Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 6, Allah the Almighty says that يَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا أُحِلَّ لَكُمْ, right? أُحِلَّ لَهُمْ قُلْ أُحِلَّ لَكُمُ الطَّيِّبَاتِ. They ask you, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that what is permitted for them, tell them that all tayyib things that are good, things that are pure, right, outside the things that Allah the Almighty has clearly forbidden for us, it is allowed for you to eat. Allah the Almighty goes on to tell us that the animals that you have trained to hunt for you, right, in a proper way, that when they hunt for you, you're able to kill them and eat, those are also allowed for you. A perusal of the hadith also lets us understand that fish, they are also allowed for you. Wild animals are not allowed.
Yeah.
That, kill other animals and eat are not allowed for Muslims.
MashaAllah.
Yes.
Jazakallah, Mufti Sahab. I'm curious about this particular mention of the Holy Quran,
Yes.
that these four animals are not supposed to be consumed.
Yes.
We know rightly from a hadith that the Holy Prophet ﷺ has mentioned animals with fangs and mostly animals who devour other animals are not also permissible for us to eat.
Yes.
Now, when a Muslim finds himself in an environment
Yes.
where most halal foods are not available to him, or he finds himself that only haram foods are available,
Yes.
What is he supposed to do? Or a Muslim is in a situation where he is not clear on what is halal and haram. What is he supposed to do?
Okay. So the Holy Quran is, as I said, although we accept it purely because it is the word of Allah the Almighty, we follow it without any questioning. As I said, the statements of Allah the Almighty are not devoid of wisdom, and Allah is Ghafur Rahim. He is the most gracious, ever merciful to His servants. And so in the Holy Quran, chapter 2, verse 173, Allah says, فَمَنِ اضْطَرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. Right? If you are compelled by necessity without exceeding the bounds, right, then there is no sin upon you on eating these animals. When you are driven by necessity, when you are starving to an extent, and there is no food available to you apart from these things, and you eat them because of that condition you find yourself in, then you can eat it. There is no sin upon you. Now, with regards to you asking that when you don't know whether it is haram or halal for you, what should you do? The Prophet ﷺ has said it's a very occurring narration both in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim that inna al-halal bayyinun wa inna al-harama bayyinun. That what is halal, what is permissible and lawful is clear, as we have mentioned from the Holy Quran, and what is haram is also clear. Right? The Prophet goes on to say, وَبَيْنَهُمَا أُمُورٌ مُشْتَبِهَاتٌ لَا يَعْلَمُهُنَّ كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. And between these two matters of halal and haram are matters that are not clear to a lot of the people. Right? So the Prophet says, فَمَنِ اتَّقَى الْمُشْتَبِهَاتِ, right? اسْتَبْرَأَ دِينِهِ وَعِرْضِهِ. Whosoever amongst you stays away from these, unclear matters, when you are in a situation where you don't understand, whosoever stays away from this secures his honor and his faith. And so what the Prophet ﷺ has prescribed for us is that when we do not know what it is, or we don't know whether this animal falls into the category of haram or halal, then we should stay away from it. For the ordinary people, they should ask people who are knowledgeable, scholars, to help them understand the situation. And for the scholars themselves, they are to turn to leaders and to research to find out what it is. As I mentioned earlier, we have the Khalifatul Masih, the representative of the Prophet ﷺ with us, and a very great team of scholars who describe this issue. So it's just one letter away to getting your answer to what is right and what is wrong.
MashaAllah.
Yes.
We say Jazakallah Sanal Jaza for you enlightening us. We have another question that we would like you to enlighten us on.
Yes, please.
Which is talking about halal and haram.
Yes.
We know that the Holy Quran has guided us in every aspect.
Yes.
Is there a clear punishment dedicated for someone who disobeys this category of halal and haram, he not observing Islamic injunctions, and just as you mentioned, devouring or eating this foods that has been forbidden by the Holy Prophet? Is there a clear punishment for such Muslims?
With regards to the eating of these animals, whether there is a clear punishment in the Holy Quran, there are no clear punishments, physical punishments. Yes, if there is an Islamic state, Islamic government, then meaning that all Muslims would be liable to Islamic injunctions. And so the head of that Islamic state has the authority to issue, corrective measures to prevent them from from falling into such consequences. But the Holy Quran itself is very general on this. As I mentioned in my earlier submission, is a spiritual test of one's obedience. And so if you call yourself a believer, and Allah the Almighty has commanded you to stay away from certain foods and drinks, and you go ahead and take those things, then you are first of all corrupting your heart. Your heart becomes hardened, and you find no, pleasure in the faith because you are disobeying it on a daily basis. That is, it is deliberate, right? It is different from the people who are incapacitated or people who are driven by necessity to do these things. If you are able to stay away from them and there is nothing stopping you, then you should. If not, your heart becomes hardened. But then, Allah the Almighty says something very clear in the Holy Quran, that it is in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 168 or 69. This is not clear in my mind right now. But it says, Ya ayyuhan nas, kulu mimma fil ardi halalan tayyiba. That all mankind, eat whatever is in the earth that is permissible and tayyib and pure. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. And do not follow the footsteps of Shaitan. إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ. He indeed is to you an open enemy. And so it is clear. Here Allah talks about the eating of food which is halal and tayyib, and says, He doesn't say that you shouldn't eat what is haram or no. He says, وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Do not follow the footsteps of Satan. And so it's clear. Anybody who chooses the haram things that Allah the Almighty has forbidden is following the footsteps of Shaitan. And if Shaitan is arduun mubin for us and we follow him, then automatically we become lost. The Prophet ﷺ has said in a very lengthy narration, I will not quote the words, but he says that take the situation of a man who goes on a journey. The food he eats is haram. The drink he eats is haram. The clothes, whatever he's doing is haram. Then he raises his hand and says, Ya Rab, Ya Rab, Ya Rab, help me. The Prophet is asking,
the prayer of such a person
be accepted? And from this, scholars have made the conclusion that a person who eats haram things, his prayers are not accepted, based on this clear analogy the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has prescribed. And so if you continue to do it, you are just hardening your heart. And eventually, other very important acts of worship, you would start refraining from it and you will lose your relationship with Allah. And we know that the purpose of religion, as Allah the Almighty said in the Holy Quran, or the purpose of our creation, in Surah Al-Dhariyat, verse 57, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Right? That we have been created to worship Allah the Almighty. As a Muslim, or the second Khalifa of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community says that if you connect this verse with the verse in Surah Al-Rahman that عَلَّمَهُ الْبَيَانِ, that وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, it connects with عَلَّمَهُ الْبَيَانِ. It means that the purpose of man's creation is to worship Allah the Almighty. That is, all the qualities, all the potentials Allah the Almighty has placed in man is for him to worship Allah the Almighty. And so if you connect with عَلَّمَهُ الْبَيَانِ, means that Allah has given you the ability to proclaim those things. So a believer who is meant to express his love for Allah the Almighty through his actions, through his prayers, through his interactions with others, and chooses to eat the things Allah the Almighty has forbidden him, his situation is as clear as daylight.
MashaAllah. Movies up, we say Jazakumullah Ahsanal Jaza. We wouldn't continue with our questions because of time factor.
Yes.
We would converge here again for another episode if Allah Almighty permit us. We would therefore say Jazakumullah Ahsanal Jaza for the enlightenment you have given us tonight.
Yes.
Viewers, this is Masuru Studio. Today's topic was Halal and Haram. We hope that you have learned a lot from Movies App submission, and we hope you would follow us and always see that you learn a lot from the Islamic teachings that we bring to you. So we meet again next time. We say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.